Welcome to the Ultimus webcast, BPM versus Workflow. In today's webcast, we'll discuss the following concepts. What is BPM, or Business Process Management? What are the differences between BPM and Workflow? We'll provide a quick focus on process optimization. We'll discuss some benefits of BPM, some examples of process design and form design, and we'll finish up with a quick product demonstration of process modeling. So what is Business Process Management, or BPM? A BPM framework is one where business processes are not only able to be automated or developed and brought to a live state, but also managed and optimized. We all have business processes in our day-to-day operations. A BPM product is going to allow you to have oversight into all your business processes, understand how they execute, who's involved with them, what are the concerns that you should have on the resources that are involved in your business processes. With that oversight and understanding of who are involved with your business processes, how they're working, and in what ways could they work better, you're going to be able to have the ability to do more with less, be able to understand how you can become more efficient as a company, and it'll allow you to move away from paper and manual processes into electronic forms and automated processes, and be able to refine those processes so that you can make changes to those processes as your business changes in itself. As you can see in the graphic here, BPM involves all the user groups in your company, IT executives, and your line of business champions. With that, each of the user groups in your office will be involved in BPM in certain ways. IT by doing integrations and possible web development. Executives who need to have both the top-level understanding of how your processes are executing, as well as the ability to drill down, if need be, to understand the details behind that. And your business unit champions, who are responsible for ensuring that their teams are operating as efficiently as possible and being able to have insight into those teams, ensuring that people are collaborating and working together inside the teams and across the teams as need be. So with those concepts covered, what are the differences between BPM, Business Process Management, and Workflow? Workflow is a simple orchestration of routing tasks from desk to desk or person to person. An example of this would be document review, where you would have a document that needs to be reviewed by your supervisor, signed off by an executive, and then filed into a folder or document repository. So that's moving work from desk to desk. BPM covers workflow in that workflow is part of BPM, but BPM is going to allow you to not just move work from desk to desk and understand how that work is being moved, but also being able to understand why the work is being moved the way that it is. And is the route of work that you have established today, in fact, your most efficient route that it should be moving through? Should you have more resources involved with that workflow? Should you have less resources? What is the internal cost of executing that process internally? These are all the questions that BPM can help you answer. Essentially, you're taking a step back from your day-to-day operations and being able to look into how everything is moving and how all the people are involved with that, and understand, does this make sense for my company? So some of the tools that allow you to do that is a modeling tool that we'll see later in today's presentation, a rules engine which allows you to define and update how work flows, setting up the mandates on no matter which process you have, if a piece of work includes a certain bit of information, to always route it to a certain direction. A simulator so that you can test your processes before and after they're live, so that you'll have an understanding of how well those processes will work in your environment, rather than instituting that process and then having to see from a live state if that process is going to work well or not. If you go that route, you can very well institute chaos inside your environment if you don't do due diligence of testing your processes before you institute them into a live state. And no matter how well you test your processes or how long, you're going to have needs to change your processes, either because of changing economic times or changes in mandates as instituted by top-level executives. And so you need to ensure that you have quick and easy ways to update your processes or optimize your processes, and not having to take processes offline and start all over. And so you need to be able to have a good optimization strategy or functionality with your BPM product. And also BAM, business activity monitoring and reporting, and BI, being able to aggregate information, KPIs or SLAs, and into desktop gauges, real-time feeds, so that you can have proactive reporting as well as reactive reporting. So you can easily do ad hoc, end-of-the-month reports, graphical, tabular. All this, you're collecting lots of information, not just the information that are part of your business processes, but your business processes themselves represent information. How many new processes were started this month? How much work is John doing in those processes? Does John need additional resources because there's bottleneck situations? These are the types of questions that you need to be able to answer, and a BPM product is going to allow you to do that. So here's another depiction of a BPM suite, and with regards to user groups and their major roles and functions as it relates to BPM. Previously, I discussed that workflow is one component of BPM, and that's depicted here. Workflow is our clients and forms and moving tasks, and ensuring that people can see an automated web task list and work on web-related tasks and moving away from paper. And also at the bottom here, having the tools to construct business processes. This is one component of BPM, but BPM extends that by being able to do the analytics and the modeling and the optimization of those business processes. Not just taking the process live, but having the science behind the process to ensure that process is efficient. That process is going to control the cost the way that you want to. And you're going to need to have that visibility of how your processes execute through cockpits or reports or BI or BAM, and those are all these parts are integral to a BPM system. So this might be how your company is today. You have disparate user groups all accessing a number of different applications that you have today in order to process the work that they have at hand. So here you can see that multiple user groups are constantly querying your applications or using the applications you have, looking for the information that they need in order to process the work, get the emails out of their inbox, answer the questions that the customers might have. And you can see here, this is a very discombobulated type of communication here. There's all kinds of is it here, is it there, where's my information, do I need to go get something here and combine it with something there in order to have a full picture. There's a lot of chaos here. But BPM is going to be able to connect the people to your systems in an organized fashion. Through a business process, the right people will have the right information at the right time so that they're going to be able to achieve their work in an organized way, get done with the task at hand, and move on to the next task. So it's going to cut down not just on your network traffic, but it's going to cut down on the number of wrong places that people look for information. In fact, not only will people just have to request information from systems to get it, but also the systems can present information to the people so that they can achieve the work that they need to. It's not just a one-way type of retrieve. So talk a little bit about risk. Controlling risk with the projects that you have, with the goals that you're trying to achieve, is inherent in part of everything that we do. We want to ensure that every effort we're making is going to be a successful one. And BPM can provide science behind that to ensure that you have a plan and a methodology to ensure you're going to be successful. So whatever your performance goals might be are depicted in the green section here. And this could be controlling cost, it could be growing revenue, it could be managing your resources ideally. So you want to be able to, with a instituted live BPM process, you want to achieve this return on your investment by automating your process, moving away from paper, and getting things into a more efficient and organized fashion. But the wrong BPM approach can actually cause the performance goals that you have to be corroded or eroded into. For instance, if you try to institute the wrong process at the wrong time, then, or a process that's too big and it doesn't have a good scope to it, then you're going to have a slow launch date. Your launch date's going to be delayed because you need to apply more resources to it, or you've understaffed your automated process that you wish to take live. So you can see here a slow launch pushes back your live date and corrodes into your performance goals. If you develop a BPM application that people simply choose not to use, it's hard to use, people were already used to using Excel, and now you've made them move away from Excel to some other type of interface, and they're not used to that, ultimately people are not going to adopt that process. And so with that, your anticipated return on investment is going to be corroded to as well. And last, adaptation. Being able to ensure that all your instituted business processes, the ones you've taken live, have the ability to change easily, to adapt to your business changes as they need be. So if you have processes that are hard to update, hard to optimize, and you continually have to start over and start from scratch, then ultimately, over the long term, you're not going to have your return on investment as you wish. So a quality BPM system like Ultimus is going to allow you to have a quick launch, a rapid launch, being able to allow you to institute and keep the same applications that you have today, Excel and Word and SharePoint. Use those as the front end if you wish, so that the institution of a BPM platform does not mean that everyone has to throw away every desktop application that they have and go to some hard-to-use web form. And a BPM system like Ultimus is going to allow you to quickly adapt your processes, make agile, quick changes to the changing needs in your company so that you can continue to enjoy the live process you have today. So what are some benefits of a business process management suite? We talked a little bit about these in terms of visibility, process improvement, being able to get the information out of your system in terms of BI or BAM or reporting. And this slide here shows that at the bottom that ROI is something that you can expect with a BPM system. You will get a savings, a time savings, or a cost savings by instituting a BPM suite. So what does a business process look like? So if you're familiar with Visio to some degree, then you're familiar with a workflow or a business process model, if you will. And in Ultimus, a business process is represented by a number of steps that are linked together either in a parallel fashion or a serial fashion. And steps can be some human involvement where you have web forms and people are inspecting data, looking at data, entering data, Or you can have system steps where the data that's been collected is transferred out of the process into databases or legacy applications, or the information could be pulled in from those applications into the business process, into the web form, so that people will have the information at hand, will be able to make decisions on that information, massage that information, enter new information if need be, and then there's a constant interchange between humans and the web forms and the applications that you have. So we're really, if you remember the slide 2 or 3 slides ago, we're building bridges between your user groups and your applications in an organized and systematic way. Here you can see that this business process has a couple of completed steps to it. The first 2 steps are completed, shown by the green check mark, and that the third step is active, shown by the chevron. The idea of having a web-based BPM system is one that you're going to be able to not just see your current task list, but also have views into the auditing of that process, the history of that process, so that you can see that through a client interface that what work has been done in the past, where is the work currently residing, and who's been involved with this business process. For user-based steps, then you're going to want to introduce web forms or be able to tie into your existing applications out there. You can develop web forms in Ultimus through an out-of-the-box forms designer, and the web forms can be very rich in terms of pulling information from databases, representing that information in grid controls and formulas, and being able to sum and calculate the information at hand. You can see here in the middle in the green bar that the ability to sign the form so that you can authenticate that in fact Steve Rogers has indeed reviewed this information. And on the right, integrated gauges so that while you're representing and seeing some data in the form, you can also see aggregations of that data, real-time feeds through, this is the IBAM piece of Ultimus Adaptive BPM Suite. So aside from web forms, you can also natively integrate with Word or Excel so that as part of BPM involvement, your client users will be taken to Microsoft Excel or taken to Word and see the data merged into your live Word or Excel documents, and then they can send directly from the Office application, send the task to the next person, because we've extended some of the functionality in Microsoft Office to have some BPM functions in it. So now we're going to move to a quick demonstration of process modeling, which is a key aspect of a BPM suite. So moving over to Ultimus BPM Studio Client. This is the design environment for your processes. Your business analysts or your process builders will be able to log into BPM Studio Client and draw processes in the same way that to some degree that you would in Visio, where you have shapes, where you have the ability to link steps together and design how a process would flow from beginning to end. In this instance here, we're going to be talking about an expense reporting process where an expense is filed through a web form. Whoever filed the expense, the task will go to his or her department supervisor, and if he or she approves that expense, then it will be moved to an accounting review step. Otherwise, the expense will be denied and an email will be sent. If the accounting department reviews the expense, then an email will be sent saying that the expense has been accepted, otherwise it will be denied. And then we'll move on down to updating some systems like AP, uploading some of the expense report to a document repository in SharePoint, and then closing the incident out, process incident out. From a modeling perspective, I don't necessarily need to be worried at this time with the integrations into email servers or AP systems. I'm simply, from a high level, drawing the process out and designing the steps in the flow and making sure that I've modeled the way that my current process works right now. So with each step in the process, you're going to be able to design what kind of properties exist around that step, and properties being some high-level analytics to that. For instance, how many resources are on the begin step here, the file report step, or how many resources are on the department supervisor step. In this case, it's 1. So each step has the ability to cite either one or multiple resources to it. In addition to resources, you have costs. So if you have the ability to equate how much per hour the resource or resources are, then we provide you the ability to track that. In fact, the resources and the costs and the time that we'll talk about allow us to do some calculations that we'll do in a second here. So for instance, the department supervisor step is $35 an hour that we've just simply typed in. The accounting review step is $30 per hour, and then the CFO is $75. So each step has its own cost value to it. And lastly, task time. So task time is how long does it take for any one task to be completed at this step. And so in this case, we have designated that for the department supervisor step, it's 3 hours. And that we got to 3 hours by doing some interviews with the department supervisor, understanding how he works, and with that, by interviewing the department supervisor, he has said that for all the expense reports that he gets per day, he roughly does say 3 or 4 a day because he's doing other things and he's out of the office a lot. And so if he can do 3 or 4 a day, we've denoted the fact that a task would take 3 hours. So, and then each step again has its own definable task time. Accounting is 5 hours and CFO is actually 10 minutes. So CFO is pretty good at, once a new expense report is alerted to him or her, to the CFO, then the CFO processes a task pretty quickly. So with each step having a resource and a task time and a cost to it, as well as the input to the process, you can see here that we designated that about a new an expense report is filed in our company about once every 45 minutes. Then Ultimus is going to be able to not just document the process like we have it here with the steps and the roles and the graphical linking, but now we're going to be able to model this process to determine how this process works currently in your company. So all the metrics that you've put into this process here represent your operations as they are today, and resources and costs and time. So now taking a step back from your day-to-day operations, by modeling the process inside BPM Studio Client here, we're going to be able to determine where the bottlenecks are in this process, respecting the times, the cost, and the resources that you've put in for each of the steps. So what I'm doing here is I'm running the process again and again and again, respecting the input value to the process, and the numbers under each of the steps here are representing the accumulated inbox tasks that each step would have if this process was run, again, respecting all those time values. As you can see here, you would not expect a simple process like this with not many branches and more or less a straight flow to not have a bottleneck. But here you can see that the department supervisor is terribly bottlenecked. He's representing a slowness to this process, because if all these tasks are piled up in his or her inbox, then the next people down the line are not getting the tasks that they need to as quickly as they should be. So we'll stop this process. We can see here easily that the department supervisor is a bottleneck. But we can also get some out-of-the-box reporting with our with BPM Studio Client Modeling application here. So if we go to the reports view at the top, we can see some high-level measures of our modeling scenario that we just ran. What is the costliest step of our process? It's the department supervisor step. And what's the slowest step of the process? Again, it's the department supervisor step. In fact, he represents almost 3/4 of the time it takes to execute this process from front to end, just for his step alone. So without having to do any type of report building through Studio Client, you can also see some different measures of the scenario we just ran. So if we look at cost for this process, we get some output in tabular format that you could either inspect here or export out to Excel, or we could switch over to the graphical view of this result set and see here again the department supervisor step is indeed representing a huge cost burden to the way that the process executes today. So we have costs, we have time, and we also have reports like utilization and underutilization that measure how much time people are sitting around waiting for work to be done. And last, we also have balance. And a balance process is one in which, over the long term, it's roughly going to take the same amount of time to execute that process, no matter if you've just started the process or you run the process for the 100th time. Because we have a bad bottleneck in this process, you can see that as the process is executed over and over again, that it's taking longer and longer for the process to complete because, again, the bottleneck exists at the department supervisor step. So this is a highly imbalanced process, and in fact, this is a process as it's built today that I would not recommend to be automated, because simply automating an imbalanced process while you're moving away from paper perhaps and you're getting to electronic forms, you're not making your day-to-day operations any more efficient, and you are going to represent frustrations to your process users because they're not going to get the information like they need it. So we need to correct this. We need to figure out how to resolve the bottleneck at the department supervisor step. So if we move back to the map view, again, we understand the metrics around this. 3 hours to complete any one task because the department supervisor's not in his or her office a lot and they're doing other things. Then what we could do is say, what impact would it have if we gave the department supervisor some additional resources for help? So if we increase the resources from 1 to 4 for this step, now ideally the process should flow faster because there's more people working the step. In fact, we can remodel this to determine the impact. So as we change the resources from 1 to 4, you can see now that the department supervisor step can keep up with the amount of incoming work at hand, and in fact, now we have a potential bottleneck situation we need to think about at the accounting step. So the ability to, as you can see here through process modeling, the ability to test a process out before you invest further in creating web forms, tying in with Active Directory, tying in with your AP system, and getting the system live, being able to do some of the homework, if you will, behind this process is going to enable you to ensure that you're going to have a successful deployment of your process once you decide to bring this process live by doing the integrations and the web forms. This is just one aspect of how a BPM product differs from workflow in that you're going to be able to provide science behind your process automations, not just simply automating it and moving on and hoping that it would work okay. You're going to have a little bit of insight to what you're doing. So this completes the demonstration part of the webcast. And so I would welcome you to submit any questions that you might have from the information you've seen today to bpmexperts@ultimus.com. This is a email account that we constantly check, and any questions that you submit to this will be answered directly, either by myself or by someone else here at Ultimus. So thank you very much for your time today for watching this webcast.